Excellent.
All right, perfect. All right, so I'm representing BPA, the Buildings Performance Institute Europe, and we are part of the iBRoad project, but I will here present you another project we did last year. It's a feasibility study we did for the European Commission, and as a result of the amended EPBD, the Article 19A there asked them to carry out the feasibility study, and that was what we did last year with the help of IFOI and Martin, as you just heard, and also the SHIP project from France. And the study consisted of three main parts. The first step was to review existing building renovation passport schemes and related initiatives. And I should say here, before any confusion comes, that with the building renovation passport, the Commission they mean the renovation roadmap and not the renovation logbook. And so the first step, we reviewed it, and in the second step, we analyzed the relevant feasibility and possible scope of measures at EU level in relation to the building and renovation passport. And in the last step, we took this identified policy options and we assessed the impact. And I should also say that throughout this process, we discussed with stakeholders. We had 2 stakeholder meetings and also an extensive survey that we took into account and that helped us reach the result. And in a first step, as I said, I think we drafted a list with about 32 existing cases, mostly from Europe, but also from beyond, that has one or two building renovation or renovation roadmap characteristic, I should say, that provides tailored renovation advice, preferably in the long term for individual homeowners. And this map shows I would say, the front-runner countries. We have as Martin told you, the individual Sanierungsfahrplan in Germany. We have in Flanders and Belgium the evolution of their energy performance certificate schemes, where now all EPCs, they include a renovation roadmap which has been automated based on existing data. And we have seen there are several local examples of building renovation passports in France. And we took these and the 16 cases and we analyzed them in more depth. This is just one example. It shows the Danish energy performance certificate scheme, which is the most, I would say, one of the most front-running EPC schemes, where they have a very elaborate database and also instruments that help, or pretty detailed recommendations and link to financial subsidies and things like that for the homeowner. And they can also, for example, compare their building performance to their neighbors and things like that. And on the right side, you see the key findings. And it, for example, says that 45% of owners living in a building with a lower EPC rating implemented at least one of the recommendations that came with the energy performance certificate the document that comes with EPC, while this number for the higher rating buildings, so C and B, is just 15-16%. And these are factors that we then took with us into the impact assessment that I will come to in a bit. Also, in a part of the study was to come up with a definition of the building renovation passport. And again, this was done in discussion with both the Commission, but also especially, I would say, stakeholders. This is the text from the amended EPBD, where they write that an optional building renovation passport is complementary to EPCs and should provide a long-term step-by-step renovation roadmap for a specific building based on quality criteria following an energy audit and outlining relevant measures and renovations that could improve the energy performance. Yes, and based on this, and all other input, we came up with a new definition saying that a building renovation passport provides a long-term tailored renovation roadmap for a specific building. Followed a calculation based on available data and or an on-site audit by an energy expert. The instrument identifies and outlines deep renovation scenarios, including steps to implement energy savings measures that could improve the building's energy performance to a significantly higher level over a defined period of time. The instrument can be complementary to the EPCs and or combined with building digital logbooks. And then based on all this, we started to look into what are the options, the policy options that the EU or the Commission they have. What can they actually do about the building renovation passport? And one of the options is then, one of the main paths, I would say, is to leave the implementation and the design and everything to the member states to decide. Do they want to implement the building passport or not? The green one is the middle way, is for the EU to set out a common reference framework, we call it, but basically set out clear guidance documents or even standards for what the building renovation passport should comprise of, and maybe also guidance on how it could or should be implemented. And the last one, the most ambitious one, I would say, policy-wise, is to make it a future EPBD requirement, to include it as an article or as an article under the existing energy performance certificates, for example. And we took these three and we created 6 policy packages. For each one of them, we created one policy package that is relatively soft in its policy ambitions, and one that is more stringent or ambitious. And this is just how we compose the policy packages. Each of the policy packages, so the 6 of them, they consist of a direct measure, so one of the 3 I just mentioned, and a number of supporting measures which are enabling measures, policy measures, financial instruments, and legislative instruments, which also Martin presented in his presentation. And it's evident that without this, the direct measures will not be very effective. This is a logic model for policy package 1, and I know it's very dense with a lot of information, and I promise you, none of you will have the chance to digest everything. But in short, on the left side, you see the left side is the policy package 1, the different parts of it. So the top left says that member states decide whether to design and implement the building passport. The EU does, even if they don't set out and tell people what to do and how to do it, they do encourage the building renovation passport through the long-term renovation strategies as an option to increase people's renovation rate and to meet their objectives. And then there is 3 enabling measures that we assume to be included. And based on this, we estimate the number of member states that will implement building renovation passport thanks to this policy package. And we assume it to be 5 additional to Germany and Belgium, which already have instruments that could be described as building renovation passports in place. And we also make the link with the building passports to the EPCs, and based on the number of issued EPCs every year, we take a certain percentage and assume that, and based on that, we assume the number of building passports that will come in the future year. And based on the number of building passports, we then make an estimation on the renovation rate and depth. And all this marked in red here are numbers that we derived or deducted from the existing cases and also from expert interviews on the impact both on the building passport but also on renovation and so on. And the last step is then from the renovation rate and depth, we could also derive a number of other impact categories. And I won't go into depth on all the findings because we have no time, but this shows the residential and non-residential energy demand. You see the dotted line is the no action scenario, and each of the colored lines are different policy packages. And the range between the policy packages are between, for residential, I think between 3 and 10%, and for non-residential between 2.5% and 8%. And you can also see that the policy package 5 and 6 are the one that will trigger the highest energy demand, and they are also the ones where we assume that the building renovation passport will become part of a future EPBD directive. And this is showing health benefits. I should be very clear here that here we looked at residential buildings, and we assume that, or we have evidence that people living in healthier buildings, which heavily correlates with better or upgraded, more efficient buildings, they have fewer sick days. And based on the number of renovation and the share of renovations, we could then make an estimation on how much savings the society would do thanks to the reduction of the sick days. And this shows on a European level, it's just to show that there is gains to be made beyond the pure energy and cost savings from these renovations. And conclusions, in a nutshell, the review shows that the building passports are effective in alleviating two of the main barriers: low awareness of the benefits of energy renovation and the insufficient knowledge of what measures to implement and in which order. And the potential impact of the building renovation passport on renovation activity is largely threefold. It can trigger building owners with no previous intention to renovate to invest in energy renovation measures. It also enhances the quality, performance, and overall depth of the renovation measures, and it triggers people that have planned to renovate to do so at an earlier stage. And as you see, all policy packages are expected to trigger energy and also CO2 savings, which are, as I said, both heavily correlated. And impact of selected policy package varies depending on indicator. For example, the energy demand, as I said, it varies between 3 and 10%, lower by 2050. And as Martin said, I would like to reiterate it was also one of our main findings that impact of the building passport will be limited unless it's coupled with financial, communication, and training measures. A building passport without accompanying measures won't have a considerable effect. So maybe that was unclear, but in each of the policy packages, we assume that the direct measure, the building passport, will be accompanied with a number of supporting measures. And also, we found that the attractiveness and effectiveness of building passports will be higher. Indoor environmental quality parameters are integrated and included. And that's it for me. I should say that I have no insight what the thinking of the Commission is now and what the next step will be. But if you have any question on the study or anything else, you can just write me or find it on the website.